The room was dimly lit, bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp that flickered occasionally, as if sharing the unease lingering between Sam and Elena. The air was heavy, thick with words unsaid and desires unexplored. They had been together for years, building a life of shared routines, laughter, and even occasional fights. But beneath the surface was a silence neither dared to confront. It wasn't a silence born of malice or neglect, but one of fear. Fear of being misunderstood, of rejection, or perhaps of facing their own vulnerabilities. Sam sat on the edge of the couch, his fingers drumming rhythmically against his knee. He glanced at Elena, who was reclined at the other end, scrolling through her phone. Her lips pursed in a way that suggested she was preoccupied, but not truly focused. Her sighs punctuated the quiet, each one louder than the last, a subtle plea for attention that Sam didn't know how to answer. I watched them, pondering the complexities of love and desire. How often do couples bound by love stumble over the simplest truths? It was clear they loved each other, but love without transparency is a fragile thing. Their intimacy had become routine, predictable, and neither seemed willing to admit they wanted more. More connection, more passion, more just like. Sam opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it, his courage failing him. He had thought about this moment countless times, rehearsing phrases in his mind that now felt clumsy and inadequate. Across the room, Elena shifted, her body turning slightly toward him, a sign she was waiting, perhaps even hoping, for him to say something. In that charged silence, I could feel it, the unspoken tension that had grown too loud to ignore. Communication is an act of courage, especially when it comes to something as vulnerable as desire. For weeks, Sam wrestled with his thoughts, searching for the right words, the right moment. It wasn't just about expressing what he wanted. It was about crossing the invisible barrier that had kept them both silent for so long. The fear of upsetting Elena, of revealing too much and being misunderstood, kept him second-guessing. Yet the more he hesitated, the heavier the weight became. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Sam noticed Elena scrolling through her phone, her usual escape when things felt too quiet between them. The glow from the screen reflected on her face, and for a moment she looked almost distant, unreachable. Sam felt a pang of guilt, realizing how long they had drifted in this silent dance of avoidance. Summoning his courage, he reached for his phone and searched for something, anything, that could help them break this cycle. The next day, a book about relationships arrived on their doorstep. Sam left it on the coffee table, conspicuously placed as an invitation. When Elena spotted it, she smirked, picking it up with an arched brow. "What's this?" she teased, flipping through the pages. Sam chuckled nervously. "I just thought maybe we could learn something about us, about what we want." The air shifted. Helena's teasing expression softened into something more thoughtful. She set the book down, her gaze locking onto his. "What do you want, Sam?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. The question startled him, but it also felt like a lifeline. Words tumbled out, hesitantly at first, then more freely. They stumbled through the conversation, awkward but genuine, realizing that their fears had been louder than the truths they were finally brave enough to share. Revelations rarely come as lightning strikes. They unfold, layer by layer, through effort and intention. For Sam and Elena, that first conversation was only the beginning. It was like opening a door to a room they hadn't dared to explore, a room filled with both possibilities and challenges. As they stepped through, they realized that building a bridge between love and lust required more than just words. It demanded vulnerability, patience, and a willingness to learn. They began to ask each other questions, simple at first. What makes you feel most desired? Sam asked one evening, his tone genuinely curious. Elena hesitated, but answered honestly, admitting that she craved not just physical affection, but the emotional intimacy that came with feeling truly seen. She, in turn, asked Sam what he needed, and he surprised her with his response. He wanted spontaneity, a spark of adventure in their intimacy that had faded over time. They decided to try, not for perfection, but for progress. Small gestures became their way of rebuilding. Sam planned a surprise date, something entirely out of their usual routine. Elena, in return, wrote him a letter about how she felt when he held her, describing the comfort and safety it gave her. These efforts weren't grand or dramatic, but they were meaningful, each one a step closer to understanding each other's desires. Of course, there were moments of discomfort and missteps. They laughed at their awkwardness, forgave each other's fumbling attempts, and kept going. Over time, they created a shared language of intimacy, one built on trust and honesty. The tension that had once filled their home was replaced with warmth, a sense of renewal. They realized that love and lust were not opposing forces, but complementary ones, each thriving when nurtured through honest communication.